We're back with the extended version of Anna's harrowing story of surviving the siege of Mariupol. In today's video, Anna gets into more detail about how she survived in the Azovstal Steel plant, the life and death decisions she had to make when she didn't think she was going to make it out alive, and her life in the West. Let's get into it.
My name is Anna Zaitseva. I'm 27 years old, and I survived 65 days in Azovstal shelter together with my 3-month-old child. And I survived in the filtration camp, and here is my story. On the 24th of February 2022, Mariupol people didn't have a chance to escape from the city. So that's why on this very day I had to go to Azovstal shelter with my 3-month baby. When the first rockets started to fall down, we didn't know what to do. Firstly, we spent the first night in the corridor of our apartment, and we were having conversations with my husband what to do to try to escape from the city or to go directly to find a shelter. And then we realized that we don't have time for escaping, and we took this decision to go to Azovstal, because at that time my husband was not a military, he was an Azovstal worker. So the Azovstal is one of the biggest steel plants in Mariupol. And firstly, when we came there, we took all the necessary stuff which we had to take, like baby formula, our documents, blankets, some food for 1 week, because firstly, we thought that it didn't last too long. We thought maybe 1 week or 2 weeks. I have realized that Mariupol can't be saved the second time in the end of March. So it was the end of our first month in the shelter, because we were ran out of food, we were ran out of water, of medicine, and also we didn't have a chance to come out of Azovstal, because practically every day Russians were bombarding us using different types of weapons. It's like a nightmare. We were sleeping on the floor, and for example, my baby was not having a shower during 2 months. And you could imagine to spend 65 days with a 3-month-old child. It's really difficult. And also I was run out of breast milk. So due to Mariupol defenders, I had baby formula, because they had provided some special operations. They were using helicopters to bring me baby formula to the shelter. To keep my baby alive, I was using baby formula, and to prepare the baby formula, I was using metal cup and candles, because there was no light, no electricity there, and that's why it was really practically impossible, but I did it. It was one of the horrible moments in Azovstal when I was ran out of breast milk, and I thought that I don't know how I could continue to breastfeeding my child and how I could feed it. So at that time, I was even thinking about suicide and about suicide in my child, because I was thinking about how he is slowly dying because of ran out of milk. And I was thinking about maybe to jump from the high point of Azovstal together with him, because at that time I was thinking about the quick and not painful death. But then later, Azov Brigade soldiers, they found our shelter, and they realized the problem, and they told me that they could have a chance to help me. It's very risky, but they told me that they're gonna do their best, and they did. In the shelter where I spent 65 days, there were 17 children. So right now I know the feeling of hunger, and this is not the feeling when you're hungry because you are stuck on the diet. This is a real hunger. And could you imagine, for example, 8-year-old child who is looking at you and he's hungry and you can do nothing with this? One of the Ukrainian military gave me a gun with 2 bullets. So it was my plan in case if Russians come. So one of the Ukrainian soldiers gave me a gun with 2 bullets because we all knew that Mariupol is already occupied by Russians. And as I'm a wife of the Azov Brigade soldier, I could only imagine how Russians would like to treat me and to treat my child. So definitely they would like to deport my child and to take me to captivity. And that's why they gave me this gun with 2 bullets, because sometimes this is the only way in such situations. If you speak, for example, with some militaries, they have grenades for themselves. So it was a kind of such plan. The worst moment in Azovstal factory was on 22nd of April, when Russians put 2 avia bombs on our shelter directly. We were trying to be evacuated several times, but every time Russians were breaking their promises, and every time they were trying to shoot us with special drones, with grenades, and also directly with rockets. And this time there were 2 avia bombs. And unfortunately, when these 2 avia bombs were falling, I was not in the shelter. I was like 1 level up of the shelter. I was preparing baby formula. And I just remember that everything was falling on me, and it was like in the movie, like it seems like the time was stopped and you don't know where you are. So actually it was a shell shock, and I started to vomit. It was difficult to breathe for me. I didn't know where to go, but I had a light with me, so I switched it on, and then I found a shelter. And because of this explosion wave, my mom broke her arm and some other people were injured. There was a woman around 75 years old, and she was at that moment near the mirror, and the pieces of mirror were falling on her, and she has huge bleeding, and it was difficult to stop this bleeding. And due to the Azov Brigade soldiers, she was saved.
If you want to support Anna, donate to the Association of Azovstal Defenders Families. The group comprises of Anna and other relatives of Ukrainian fighters who defended Mariupol until they were forced to surrender in May of 2022 after months of resistance. The association makes sure the world doesn't forget about these brave fighters and actively advocates for their freedom. Some 900 servicemen and women, including Anna's husband, are still in Russian captivity. Donating to their cause will help Anna and other relatives of these Mariupol defenders continue their advocacy work until they're finally released. There's a link in the description for those who want to donate. All right, back to the interview.
Because our Ukrainian militaries, they were in Azovstal without painkillers, without proper medicine, and the majority of the operations which were provided in the improvised hospital in Azovstal were done without painkillers. So could you imagine when, for example, there is a guy of 21 years old and they have to take away his leg but without any painkiller, or just using ibuprofen? When we were going to the filtration camp, I thought that it was better to stay in Azovstal, because I could only imagine what Russians were going to do with me and with my child. I was so scared. This is the feeling when you are going directly to your killer. And I still remember the face of the Russian soldier who was sitting in front of me with a gun. And I remember how scary it was, and I didn't know what to do. And in this bus, there were some representatives of Red Cross and the United Nations. And as I speak French, I started to speak with them in French language because I thought that maybe Russian soldier could know English. So in some way, it helped me. I told to the representative of Red Cross that how many people left in our shelter. Also, I told him that I'm wife of the Azov brigade soldier, and maybe in the filtration camp, Russians will treat me, let's say, differently. And also asked him to do his best for my child, for my family.
First of all, are you okay? Do you want to take a break?
No, it's fine. It's okay. It is PTSD. I know I'm shaking. It is PTSD.
I just don't want to.
No, it's okay. We can do nothing with this. It is as it is. I was interrogated in the filtration camp of the village Bezimenne. It is a place where there were a lot of Russian soldiers and Russian weapons and in general technical stuff. First of all, they told us that we have to be divided into groups, women and men. We came to one building and they told us to be totally naked. And then they were touching us. And then Russian women soldiers were touching us. They were trying to find also Nazi symbols on our bodies. If you have, for example, a tattoo, you have to explain the meaning of this tattoo. If you have a scar, you have to explain also from where you have this scar. For example, I have a scar from appendicitis operation, and they were asking me like around several minutes from where it is. And also I had a tattoo with French words La vie est belle, which means life is beautiful. And they accused me that I'm Nazi because they thought that this is not French but German language. You could be Nazi according to Russian propaganda if you are speaking Ukrainian. You could be Nazi if you are wearing a trident medallion, as I did. So you could be Nazi only because you are having some trident Ukrainian national symbols with you. Later, they told me to go to another building. There they took my phone and they connected my phone to their laptops and they downloaded all the information that I had on my phone. Even the photos which I had deleted previously, I don't know how, but they had a chance to return all these photos and to download it to them, to their laptop. They took our fingerprints and they were treating us in general like we are prisoners, we did something bad. And then it was the interrogation by FSB representative. So they were asking me questions about my personality, about how I met my husband, his biography. They were trying to find out some information about his friends, his militaries, but I pretended as my husband was so jealous and he told me to do not talk to other men, so I don't know his friends. also they were trying to ask me about his tattoo symbols, about his military position. I was like, I don't know, I don't remember, I don't understand. I was thinking about the worst stuff because we know that Russians are raping our women, our children even, and we have the cases of rape even with the prisoners of war. So Russians are neglecting all Geneva Conventions. It doesn't matter for them you're a civil person or you're a military. They don't have respect for life. If they tell you that we're gonna kill you, I think your answer could be, okay, kill me, because I want this just to stop. Because I think the worst is not the death, but the feeling that the death is coming. This is the most horrible thing in life. And if you experience this, if you ever seen the death in your life so close, I think it can break something inside of you. And this is what we call PTSD syndrome. And sometimes I feel like it's gonna be for my whole life with me, because I still have nightmares about FSB representatives. I still have nightmares about rockets, about how I'm running somewhere, I'm trying to escape with my child in my hands. And I have such nightmares practically every day. But then there is a new day, I have to get up, I have to take a cup of coffee and again to be a mother in Berlin, just as normal one, just as I didn't experience this war. I saw my husband in Azovstal only 2 times, just for 5 minutes, and definitely I was afraid to lose him. I was afraid that he could be injured, and unfortunately one day some soldiers came to us and they told me that he's injured. And later, when he was going to captivity, I saw him and he was going with stretchers, so he was using stretchers. The last time I saw him, I asked him, will you return? And he didn't reply. He just looked into my eyes and I understood everything. When you are a soldier, you have to choose your country or your family. And it's a difficult choice. He has chosen his country. So he is a hero of his country. Sometimes we don't understand how happy we are to have all this ordinary everyday stuff, just like a cup of coffee. And I think that sometimes we are so capricious because like, oh, I want this coffee with like coconut milk, I want this, I want that. But frankly says, I think just to be happy, you don't need a lot of stuff at all. Last time I spoke to my husband was in May, before his captivity. And unfortunately, there is no way to connect with him because I was trying to send him letters, but Russians are not letting our Azov Brigade soldiers to receive these letters. According to Geneva Convention, if you are a prisoner of war, you have a right to have a phone call with your relatives. You have a right to receive the letters, but unfortunately, Russians are not paying attention on rules. And definitely, as a mother, I feel myself guilty, but at the same time, I understand that I didn't do this situation. The only people that have to feel guilty are Russians. because they invaded my country. They were trying to kill me, to kill my family, and they killed my friends. They killed pupils to who I was teaching French. They killed innocent children. So they have to feel guilty, not me, because I was trying to save my child. I can't say that I'm fine. Actually, when I came to Europe, to Berlin, and I was in USA, I got used to this politeness to ask people, how are you? And we all know that we have to answer, I'm fine, thank you. So this time I don't want to be polite. I can't say that I'm fine, because I think I'm gonna be fine when the war is stopped, when Russians return us our territories, when Russians return us my hometown, Mariupol, when Russians return us Mariupol defenders and deported children, then I'm fine.
Thank you all so very much for watching this extended episode of Anna's Story. Black Diplomats is back to publishing weekly dispatches about civilian life during the war in Ukraine. And please do support our work by joining our Patreon community. We have several tiers for you to pick from. Whichever one you pick, you'll be helping us tremendously with financially supporting the production of these videos and keeping the channel going. I love living in Ukraine and telling the stories about the people who live here. Becoming a Patreon member helps me do just that. All right, y'all. See you next week.